So I have realized that one of the reasons why I probably really like to make videos where I'm driving or walking is because I don't have to then do like eye contact and like think about my facial expression, etc. And I've been thinking, you may have been able to tell a lot about autism and neurodivergence and how that has shown up in my life and what that means for myself and like thinking about my past and then also like my current reality. And I had the great pleasure of attending a training on something called the values-based integration process with Heather Morgan. It's a tool for coaches and therapists to support their clients in identifying values based on like joyful experiences, and then using those to work with painful experiences to identify like where the value of the person was pushing up against a message that they received from their community or society around like how they should be. And it's truly fascinating, and I can't wait to talk more about it. But one thing that was like I did not expect to experience is that because it was run by a person who actually, I don't know if Heather identifies as autistic or just neurodivergent, but I'm not sure. But because it was run by someone who was certainly like super duper aware and strengths based around neurodivergence, she started it by being like, we really want you to, in the context of this experience, be like as neurodivergent as you want to be. Like, no amount of movement is off the table. Like, you can stim the whole time. You can do anything that you need to do. Like she said that they had a person who like bounced on a bouncy, like one of those big balls that you can sit on for like the whole 2-day training. And I have never been in an environment where it was explicitly stated, like, you can stim, you can move, you can turn, like she was like, turn your overhead lights off, like, don't make any eye contact, participate only through the chat, like all these things that I have never been given explicit permission to access before in a group space or in any space. And I was really surprised to see how overwhelmed I was by that invitation. Like, I immediately turned off the lights, which I only have lights on when I'm in a setting where I'm like trying to do it for the other person's benefit. So like if my kid is home or somebody is over, I will turn lights on. If I'm in a Zoom meeting, I'll turn lights on for the other person. But if it was up to me, like, I would just never have any lights on. Like, my preference is to use this little reading light that just goes like around my neck, and it like does like a little bit of light just so I can see what's in front of me. But my preference is not to have any lights on at any point. So I like immediately turn off the lights, and then I have what I'm calling a tic. It is not, I've not received a medical diagnosis for it, but like I really like when I'm not talking to do this, move my jaw. So I knew a student who someone was that was close to me was working with, who had an autism diagnosis and would often do that, like that. And I always thought, like, God, that looks so good. Like, that looks so satisfying. I love that. Like, it just watching it made me feel good. And a year or two ago, I started playing with it. Like, what if I let myself do it? And maybe like 10 years ago, actually, I had, like, I sometimes have a pull with my neck, like it'll just go like that. And I was having a lot of migraines at the time also, so I was a little concerned that there was a possibility that I was like having seizures or something, because I didn't really know. I knew about tics, but I didn't really know what they could look like. And so I got like all these CT scans and like MRIs and a bunch of stuff to see if I was having like mini seizures. And then I didn't think about it again. And if I do meditations, like especially like a yoga nidra, I have a lot of twitchy movements. So I was just thought I'm just like a twitchy person. But a year or so ago, when I started giving myself permission to do all the like facial movements that I want to do, I only like give myself permission like when I'm on a walk, basically, when nobody's gonna see me. And so if I'm talking, I don't need it as much, or it doesn't happen as much. But the rest of the time, like, I just don't do it because I don't want people to be like weirded out or whatever. I think it's inappropriate or whatever. And I always thought tics like could only be tics if it's like absolutely you can't stop it from happening. But when she gave this invitation, I was like, oh my God, maybe I'm gonna let myself do this with my mouth during this, because it feels good. And I decided, like, I'm gonna let myself be like as twitchy and like in an ideal world, I am like constantly moving, taking hats on, taking hats off, taking headphones on, off, changing my shirt, like putting sweatshirt on, taking it off, like changing the socks on, because anything that's touching my body, it has a simultaneous, like, it feels good for a little bit and then it doesn't feel good. And I can't quite determine like what's gonna feel good for what amount of time. And so when I was working in schools and I had to pick one thing of clothing to wear for like 7 hours, it was brutal. That's one of the things that is the most favorite about my life right now, is that I don't require myself to wear any clothes that are considered like appropriate anymore. I primarily wear pajamas, because pajamas tend to be the most comfortable like version of clothing in my experience, the least like constricting, and the least like tags and like places like seams. And it was so funny because she was talking at one point about like, if you're a person who's like, you can feel the seam on your sock. And I was like, what? Because in early childhood, I was seriously like, the seam on my sock is attacking me. Like, it felt like it was enacting violence on me regularly. Like, I felt like the socks were mean and I couldn't explain it to anyone. It made me just feel like so stressed out. Not even stressed out, it made me feel attacked. And that's how waistbands feel too. And really anything that had like the top of socks as well. Oh, so horrible. The necks of clothes, just so many things. So I just went for it, like, and I was just almost like curious what was gonna happen if I just really went for it. So I like did as much switching of things as I wanted to do. I think I was in pretty much constant movement the entire time. I turned my lights down low. I wore my favorite is to wear my hat like very low on my eyes and like only look up like this, like look down and look up to see something. I also realized like I did not want to look at any of the people in the room. When there was a whole room of Zoom people, I felt like it was like way extra effort to lift my head up and look at them. And so I just looked down the entire time. I gave myself permission to not smile at all, which I always have done for so long is make so much effort to smile sporadically so people like feel more comfortable. And that, I mean, that started early. I had a lot of shyness in early childhood. I don't think I want to bring in any of this right now, although we're gonna have a big snowstorm. I wish there was a way to pause these videos or to know what time it is when you're doing a video. Oh, I can see the time. Okay, I'll just sit here and do this for a minute. So like having this hat low like this is my favorite. Like even like that is like too much brightness. So I let my hat be low, let my like eyes be down. I didn't make an effort to smile. Oh, I was gonna say that when I was in grad school, they would observe us doing our clinical sessions with clients, and my professor told me that my face was like so a problem. It looked like I was mad the whole time. And she was like, I'm going to video it so you could watch yourself. So since then, which was like 15 years ago, I have like made an extra effort to smile, which always at the end of a day, like after a bunch of sessions, I'm like, I just want to just like not smile for 20 years. Smiling takes a lot of effort for me. And so I didn't smile. I didn't look up. I didn't talk really. I just participated through the chat, and she was very affirming of that the whole time. Um, and the few times that I did talk, I didn't look up. And when she was talking about me or to me, I continued looking down, which felt magical, like shockingly magical to not have to look. And I like just, I really went for it. And in a lot of ways, it felt fantastic. And then I noticed that when I would get one-on-one, I was like much less able to do all that stuff. Like I didn't need it as much. I felt more comfortable looking at the people, engaging with them, smiling with them. But I also didn't feel as much permission. Like right now, I feel like I'm really giving myself a lot of permission to not look at the camera, even though I feel like I should. But it feels like really challenging, but good to not. And so that was like a little interesting. And then I noticed at the end of the day, she was like, I'm so glad you got through this. Like, I was a little concerned because of how dysregulated you were. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah. She was concerned about me. Like, when I went for it to the best of what, like, to exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to interact with it, she was concerned about me. A person who's like trained in this and invites people to do it. So that was just like a little sad, I think, because I realized how much of a burden I feel to like make other people not worry about me or not feel uncomfortable by me. And yeah, so it's just a little sad, but it's also like evidence to why like life feels taxing because I spend so much energy on this stuff. And yeah, it was just a really interesting experiment to see what that was like. And you know, one of the things that we talked about is that like masking is like helpful to a certain extent. Like there are times and places where I do want to mask because it helps me meet like certain long-term goals in a world that's not super supportive of people who maybe act the way that I would act if I was completely unmasked. So yeah, it's fascinating to be in that. Sort of like fascinating to be in this moment of taking this video and seeing how it would feel if I just like didn't make eye contact with you all, and just let myself be. So like, yeah, I think it's also interesting because there's the kind of like I remember I had a dear friend who was assigned male at birth, and really close friend. And when I came out as gay, which I now identify more as just like pan. But at that point, my people in my life were like, well, if you like him, like, just be with him. Like, why do you have to be with a woman if you could be with a man? And I feel like there's that same vibe. Like, why do you have to be unmasked if you could be masked? Like, just do the thing that makes it easier for you in society. And I think that's something that I really want to, like, give myself permission and opportunity to push up against and see. Like, one of the things that I've been very interested in the past few years is like, how good can it get? Like, I got from suicidal to like fine. But then I was interested in like, well, could it actually be great? And I am at the point where it feels great, and I feel like how much better could it get? Like, that's just an interesting question to me. Like, I think it could keep I from what I've experienced so far, I can keep getting better. And if I continue to like um take the opportunities when I can to not spend energy on showing up in the way that people expect me to, then like I'm excited to see where that energy could go and what's possible. And even like at the end of that 2-day intensive, 8 hours a day, like really deep work training, I was so jazzed about a question that was asked that like I developed a whole like kind of like guide. I'm gonna make a separate video about it that differentiates like TBI characteristics with autistic characteristics, and like was talking to Heather, the creator of the VBIP, which I learned about Heather through Devon Price, who wrote the book Unmasking. So I highly recommend that book, and then highly recommend Heather's work. So like, yeah, like put together this whole thing to connect with Heather on potentials for working together around using the VBIP with ex-evangelicals and people coming out of high demand religions and queer people. And like, so I had a ton of energy, even though like the rest of the people in the group were talking about how they were like so wiped out and they would need to like stare at a wall. I was like up till midnight creating. And I think that's because it gave me a lot of energy to be able, like, I bought back a lot of my energy by not spending it on looking at people and smiling and keeping the lights on. Oh my gosh. So, anyways, this is just the beginning of more conversations to be had around this amazing tool, the VBIP. And I just wanted to share this part with you about like how it felt to actually get permission. It was actually a bit overwhelming. Like, I think there was a lot of grief that came up when I realized how much I wanted to do that I don't give myself permission to do regularly, and how much, yeah, just how significant that was. So, interesting for anyone who wants to try it out, to give yourself permission, even if it's like time by yourself when you start to play with some of these things, and see what it feels like. Okay, love you.